And Solomon, the son of David, is saying, you know what's actually better than a great birthday party? A funeral. Like, how is that? Here's the reason why. Because it's in that morbid moment, it's in that solemn moment, it's in that serious moment that I am looking at someone whose plans are now over. They're not going to do any more work. They're not going to close any more deals. They're not going to teach any more classes. For that is the end of all men. And the living, what? Take it to heart. The other thing that the Lord would have you to not hurry through is a season of mourning. These devout men, they carried Stephen to his burial, and then instead of trying to immediately get over it, that's what we often do when we're dealing with death, when we're dealing with loss. We just try to get through it. I'm just trying to get past it. And that's actually not what God recommends, that we would just try to get past it. This is from Ecclesiastes chapter 7, 1 through 4. A good name is better than precious ointment. Precious ointment here is a metaphor for luxury. To have a good name is to have a legacy worth mentioning, Ross. You're better off with a good name, which does not cost any money, Robert. Doesn't cost a dime to have a good name, CR, than to actually have luxury. And the day of death is that day. I want to be a little bit morbid here. Denise, you're in the box. You're no longer teaching. No more disc golf, Dan. You're in the box. You're done. The day of death is actually better than what? The day of one's birth. How in the world is it better? And then he goes on to explain. It's better to go to the house of mourning. That is another reference to that day of death where I actually recognize someone who has gone home, who has left. It's better to go there than to go to the house of feasting. What is the house of feasting? Herod on his birthday threw a feast. Pharaoh on his birthday threw a feast. Rather than insert my own thinking, the Bible will explain itself. The day of feasting it's as simple, it's a birthday celebration. We have all kinds of birthday celebrations. Have piñatas, cakes and stuff like that. And we have a great time. And Solomon, the son of David, is saying, you know what's actually better than a great birthday party? A funeral. Like, how is that? Here's the reason why. Because it's in that morbid moment, it's in that solemn moment, it's in that serious moment that I am looking at someone whose plans are now over. They're not going to do any more work. They're not going to close any more deals. They're not going to teach any more classes. For that is the end of all men. And the living, what? Take it to heart. The living look at that moment, those who are actually living, and I think living here should be regarded as spiritually alive. Living, they look at it and they realize somewhere between now and my time there, I can make a decision about what kind of legacy I'm going to have. It's in that moment that I am most likely to be impacted in a way that gets away from the hustle and bustle and the fray. No one at the end of their life says, I wish I had done more hours in the office. They get deceived by Satan into thinking that the wrong things are important. And they're not spending enough time with their spouse or with their children or sharing their faith. But it is in that moment when I'm looking at someone who is now dead and I'm realizing all these things that I think are important really are not that important at all. The living take it to heart. He goes on in verse 3, sorrow is actually better than laughter. Here is why everything you do is actually coming out of your heart. And changing the heart is impossible for a person to do. That's why David, after committing great sin, says, create in me a clean. Create in me a clean. Create in me a clean. Out of the heart flow the issues of life. One of those things that God can use to actually bring about a change of heart is being in that house of mourning. Oh God, what am I doing? I'm wasting time. Oh God, what am I doing? I'm living in rebellion. I have rejected your right to reign in my life. And eventually I will not have a chance to repent. I will not have a chance to do anything different. God, and this is what God is wanting. God saying, yeah, God, yeah, come on. Help me. I then join David, Stephen, and say, create in me a clean heart.